right. So I had a question or comment on one of my channels whether I would do a boxing time bouts, a rating guide for historical boxers. And normally I don't. So when I sit down to rate historical boxers for my games, I do have ranges that I'm looking at based on whatever data is available. But then I do spend time researching, reading a little bit about boxers I'm not familiar with. I'll watch YouTube videos to try to glean information from old boxers. But the reality is I do have kind of guidelines or baselines that I use to rate historical boxers. And then I'll make there's some subjectivity to subtle nuances in which I might tweak boxers. So I kind of rate the boxers that go into the books kind of in relationship to the boxers I'm putting in the book. So for instance, you might see Joe Frazier rated lower or higher because of the boxers that are in the set with him. Anyway, long story short, folks, I've had more than once I've had a public comment, but I've had some emails from folks in the past that said, is there any way to rate historical boxers? And I've always declined trying to provide a paradigm, although I personally use formulas and ratings, but then I make those subject to my opinions and my expertise or lack thereof. And many would argue my lack thereof expertise, because I have certain boxers rated. I'm sure that would be argumentative at best. Long story short, so I dug out my playtest documents, and I decided to put those down in a handout. So individuals who own boxing time bouts could rate any boxer in history as long as that boxer has the data available. And you could do so without any subjectivity. You would be able to rate every single boxer in history based on their actual data available. That is, if you can find the data. Pro Boxing Rec, I think, has all the data that I use. And I have a paradigm so you can rate them for boxing time bouts. This is not for big country boxing time or boxing time, standalone boxing time. This is for boxing time bouts. And so I have finished it this morning and I made it available. I've had people ask me over the years, will I rate more boxers? Why am I not rating boxers? And I've always argued that that's because so much of boxers, it is based on opinion. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Teddy Atlas. He'll say things that are argumentative to the most diehard boxing fans. So it's very difficult without data. However, for boxing games to function, the game itself has to resemble the sport. And then, of course, you would like to be able to plug historical boxers into that engine to produce ratings, or reliable ratings. So I've always said before, my goal is never to create replay games. It is to create sports simulators that can be fictionalized or used with fictional teams, players, boxers, etc. However, I love boxing, and I'm always trying to create team accurate representations for my games. Anyway, long story short, folks, I have made the Boxing Time Bouts Ratings Guide available. This will allow you to objectively, based on these formulas, will just rate boxers based on the data available to you without any guesswork. What that's going to do is it's going to standardize a universe of boxers. So you're going to see some boxers are going to be at the highest ratings in every category, some boxers are the lowest. So this is where, when I create boxers, I use my own judgment to make subtle tweaks to the boxing ratings, which you could do too. You could use this as a guideline and then make subtle tweaks to them if you disagree. However, if you just wanted to rate historical boxers and have no subjectivity, you can use this. Okay, so the ratings guide, very simple. Weight class is flexible. Many real-life boxers fought in multiple weight classes. I do not differentiate boxers' statistical data based on weight class. So you could have a boxer who fought middleweight, welterweight. Terrence Crawford fought, I don't know how many weight classes. How he's rated is for his career. So that's just what he's going to be, whether he's fighting lightweight or he's fighting middleweight. So don't worry about it. Just make sure that the weight class is somewhat. And again, in my book, I limit it to light, middle, and heavy. So, if you have a welterweight boxer, you can either make a welterweight class of boxers, or you could just slide that welterweight into lightweight or middleweight, depending on how you want to do it. And I don't punish I don't try to find the statistics for every weight class. So weight class is just whether they are going to be a welterweight, junior, bantam, whatever you want to do. You can obviously make them, for that class. Skill is based on their total win-losses, their total wins minus losses and draws in the boxer's career. Skill is based on their win-loss, their wins minus their losses and their draws for a raw number. Quality is based on the win percentage for their career. Knockout is based on the boxer's KO percentage. Limit is based on the boxer's total rounds divided by their total career bouts. This is an obvious math formula. Bouts is their total bouts. So Muhammad Ali, I think, had 56 and 6, right? So Muhammad Ali had 62 bouts. So you would start Muhammad Ali in your game with 62, and as he fought, you would remove, every time he fights a fight, you would knock off Muhammad Ali's bouts. So you don't even need to use bouts. Bouts is just a career limiter, so you get a clue when you make a boxer how many bouts they're allowed to fight before they're retired. So bouts is really completely optional. The limit is the number of rounds that a boxer can go before their TKO is tallied against them. Okay, and this is just based basically on how many rounds they fought on average. But you'll see how that works out here. So total wins, subtracting losses and draws. I think I misspelled that. Gee, many Christmas. That look right? No. Is their skill. So, for instance, I think Muhammad Ali, again, was 56 and 6 minus 6. He had 50. So Muhammad Ali would be a 5 skill. He had 50 more wins than he had. He had 50 total wins when you subtract his losses and his draws. I think that's right. Anyway, Muhammad Ali would have a 5 skill. So what you're going to see is boxers who had a long career, even if they really, let's say some of the old-timey boxers might have 140 boxers in their history, and they might have lost 35 fights, and they might have drawn 24 fights. They're still going to be over 50. Those guys are going to be 5s, and they probably shouldn't be based on their percentage. But that's why we have quality. So don't be freaked out when boxers with a ton of fights, even if they weren't great, have a high skill. This would reflect that they are indeed skilled. You don't fight 200 professional fights or 140 professional fights and you aren't skilled, right? I guess there are some absolute knuckleheads out there that go out there and just get beat up for 200 fights. Those guys probably exist. If you're rating those guys, then feel free to put their skill as, if you're rating guys that had long careers that really aren't great, then put them at a 3. You're going to have to use some. You're going to have to use some subjectivity. But if you're just rating some of the greatest middleweights of all time or whatever, this will be fine. And what this does, it also compensates for those boxers that had short careers. So the boxer that went 21-0 and died in a car accident, he's only going to be a 3 skill. We didn't get to see what he would do as he ramped up. Okay. So this accounts for those guys that had short careers in which they might have went 29-0. Sorry, it's not enough fights, right? Okay. This is, again, it will turn out you're going to have more 5-skill fighters probably because of the nature of this formula. However, that doesn't mean they're going to have high quality as well. But, again, this is the problem. I normally have these kind of ranges when I rate boxers, and then if I don't know them very well, I'll investigate, I'll read about them, I'll watch videos on them, and I'll try to subtly tweak those numbers. And of course, sometimes I'll be able to look at who their opponents were in an era. So, Muhammad Ali was great because he also fought great competitors. There are plenty of heavyweights that dominated and didn't really fight the greatest competition. I think we all know that, right? It's the weight of schedule, so to speak, the weight of competition. So you have to kind of decide if you want to make those subtle tweaks. If not, though, you can just plug in raw numbers and rate boxers, so it's up to you. The win percentage is very simple, right? You divide their wins by their total bouts. So if Muhammad Ali won 56, right, and fought 62, divided by 62, his win percentage is 90, whatever, so he would be an A quality fighter. So Muhammad Ali is going to show up here as 5A, right? The best possible skill he can have, and he's one of the greatest of all time based on quality. So this win percentage kind of dictates the quality of the people they fought, right? Yeah, I mean, even great boxers can have quite a few losses because they fought great opponents. Again, you may find these ranges are pretty narrow, but there's only 5 grades available in my game. Knockout percentage, this is very simple. It's KO percentage, right? It's the number of bouts divided by knockouts. And this is not by, by wins. So Muhammad Ali, let's say, had 56 wins and 43, what did he have? He had 36 knockouts divided by 56 wins. I think Muhammad Ali, 64%. So Muhammad Ali's a 4 right in here, right? Mike Tyson and guys will be a little higher, right? Okay. So knockout percentage. Yeah, that's wins divided by, that's their total knockouts divided by their wins. Obviously, you're not going to divide it by their bouts because the bouts they lost and the bouts they had a draw in, they clearly didn't score a knockout in. So you do not want to count their KO percentage for their bouts. You want to count it for their wins because they clearly did not lose a fight that they knocked somebody out in, and they clearly didn't draw in a bout they knocked somebody out in. So ignore losses and draws and divide their knockouts by their wins. And that'll give you their KO rating. Remember, 2 is the best. So this is going to look weird. Wow, high. No, 2 is better. Okay. And rounds are very simple. Rounds divided by bouts equals their limit. So up to 3 rounds for a boxer in his career, he'll have a 4 limit. I think Muhammad Ali rates out to about 8.9 or something. So Muhammad Ali would fall into the 10 limit. You're going to see a lot of boxers will fall into 10. That's okay, right? Because especially if you're playing old school 12-round, 15-round championship bouts, that's going to be fine. If you're going to stick with all your bouts being 8-round bouts or modern 10 or 12-round bouts, Muhammad Ali's rarely going to be TKO'd, except by knockdowns. So Muhammad Ali could still suffer a TKO by knockdowns, being knocked down 3 times fights. That's it. Or 4. I think it's 4. If a boxer suffers 4 knockdowns in any single fight, they are TKO'd. However, if it's going to be due to cuts, etc., obviously Muhammad Ali didn't suffer many cuts in his career. So limit is not just their endurance; it's when it's the limit of their entire body. It's not just fatigue; it's also when you might start counting cuts, and swelling, or being pummeled. So a guy like Muhammad Ali is going to be at the max, right? So literal bouts, again, I said it already at the beginning here. What are bouts? Bouts is just the total number of bouts in a boxer's career. When you create a boxer, you randomly determine how long that boxer's career is going to be. But obviously, if you have real-life boxers, their bouts are going to be what their real life is. So Muhammad Ali's bouts, I think, are 62 or something like that. 68, 62, I can't remember. But you get my point. Then as you fight Muhammad Ali, you would remove a bout for every bout until his career's over. So you're going to see discrepancies between the boxers that I rate in the books and using these formulas. You're going to find that if you rate Joe Frazier, for instance, from the book, looking at the book, Joe Frazier may not equal what it says here. That's because I used these as guidelines when I first created the playtest boxers, and then I adjusted those boxers based on playtesting. So you'll see that there's a subtle nuance in ratings from the boxers in the books. You might find that the boxers rate differently if you make raw, right? Anyway, if the data is available, if you have their total wins, losses, and draws, you can determine their skill. If you have their win percentage, if you have their total bouts and their total wins, you can determine their quality. If you have their knockout percentage, their total knockouts, and their wins, you can determine their knockout rating. If you have their total rounds divided by the total bouts of their career, you can determine their limit. And, of course, bouts you'll have. If you have, you're going to need it for most of this data. So if you have their total bouts, you got their total bouts. And also round down to the nearest whole number on all equations. The reason for this is you want to create that edge. You want to get that fighter that is right on the edge, and you might round down, and he drops from if you round up, he might make it into the A category when maybe for his history's sake, he should be just slightly off that or something, right? Or vice versa. 6, rounding down. 6. So if anything is 649, 899, sorry, he's an F. It's not going to round up to get him into the D category, right? And that's going to be rare. Again, most of the boxers you make are probably going to have a higher win percentage. Matter of fact, this is where the quality is going to be, where you find, unless you're making every boxer in history, and most boxers in history are going to, that are worth playing in the tabletop game are probably going to be pretty high, right? This is where the quality grade is going to be big for almost everybody. Remember, in Boxing Time Bouts, it isn't offense versus defense. It is the quality of a boxer versus the quality of a boxer. So Muhammad Ali versus another A fighter they're going to both be reduced to fighting here, right? Because that accounts for the other guy's ability to also play defense, that other guy's ability to move around the ring, to clinch. So yes, Muhammad Ali can be reduced to fighting equal to his opponent, right? So that's how the game is designed to work. So, all right, anyway, it is here. For those who have wanted to create boxers or wanted me to make more and I just haven't been able to get it done, I went ahead and shared my playtest ranges, and then I would subtly tweak the boxers to suit what my judgment, my opinion was. Take it or leave it. But if you just plug Alexis Aguelo into these numbers, you're going to get whatever raw data Alexis Aguelo is. So, all right, everybody, have a fantastic weekend. I will not do this for Boxing Time. Boxing Time is a little more difficult. It's a little more, there's more ratings, and it's a little more nuanced. And Boxing Time was never meant to have, again, real life historical boxers. I've taken the time to rate the few I have, and it's a time consuming and difficult. And no matter how long I take, no matter how much research I do, it's always going to be argumentative. And especially when my games have a 5 range limit from A, B, C, D, and F. Letter grade's like a report card, right? So, there's a lot of boxers that in history that some people would view as all-time greats, and they might rate out a C in defense in my game, and that's going to piss off a lot of people who think they know boxing, right? So I do rate real historical boxers for Boxing Time. I have and I do, but I will not try to create a paradigm for that, because there's defense in there's chin, there's desire. Again, those things are subjective. There is not enough raw data for me to decide to create a formula, a standardization formula to make Boxing Time Bouts desire ratings or chin ratings suitable. I know all of my game design contemporaries, the title bout designers and Gary Brown and Anthony Crooks, they all have figured out a way to rate those based on whatever their arguments are. I would argue they're all completely subjective and based on opinion. And that's fine. That is 100% fine. And some are going to come, when you look at those cards, some are going to look you right in the eye and you're going to say, I completely agree with this guy. You're going to look at other boxers and you would say, oh no, I don't think Aaron Pryor should be this low, right? Or whatever. So, you have to trust the game designer when it comes to those things. And we know this for a fact because there is no data for a lot of these ratings in these games. At least my games, we keep the ratings pretty tight. And again, Boxing Time Bouts is great because it's only 4 ratings: skill, quality, knockout, and limit. There's only 4 ratings. So we can pretty much make some judgments on those. Boxing Time Bouts is 9 ratings, and much more subjectivity goes into those. All right, everybody, have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.